to colleagues. And finally, if you aren't an FSB member, we'd love to have the opportunity to speak to you further about the benefits of joining. So please do visit our website at fsb.org.uk to book a meeting with a membership advisor. So over to you, Debbie.
Yay! Oh, yay! Well, it's a bit noisy, but that's what used to happen years ago when we didn't have 24/7 social media and stuff like that. Now, put that away safely because we don't want that. Today, when there's so much stuff, we've got to get over a message to get people to understand that you have something really worthwhile listening to, and you want people to actually take action, probably buy something from you or certainly work with you. So that's where I come in with my amazing tips and techniques, which I've picked up, gosh, a whole lifetime. And we talk about crisis comms. Yes, indeed, a dreadful business altogether. Let me think, how who in their right mind would take their first PR job in the chemical industry? Well, hello, here I am, yes. And what is the first thing you think about with chemicals? Bang! Yes, bang. And that's a big bang happened very soon into my first few years with the company. Burning buildings, dead bodies, sadly, prosecuted by health and safety, found guilty, I'm afraid. All sorts of things. So yeah, I mean, a real, literally ordeal by fire in my early days. But I learnt what worked and I learnt what didn't. And then I moved into the leisure industry. And you might think that's very glamorous as well. But, you know, again, we had a huge estate internationally, nightclubs, casinos and cinemas, 4 murders in 1 year. Yeah, nightclubs, not too good. Not just in our company, I have to say. But all these things. Now, when these things happen, people don't want to listen to the PR person. They want to hear from the works manager, the club manager, the MD. Okay, so my whole career has been built on crafting those statements and those conversations and those interviews and training those people who were absolutely scared witless in front of those live cameras to deliver an authentic and a believable and a genuine message under those really pressured conditions. So that's why I'm doing this today, because I've moved away from crisis management. It actually does cause a few personal issues. I am slightly bonkers actually, but and I want to pass those on because I've been working freelance now for nearly 20 years, helping people just like you to get their message across and develop their business so that they can stand out from the crowd. Because, you know, there are probably at least 100, probably more like 1,000 or millions of people who do exactly what you do. Exactly. So how do you stand out from the crowd? How do you not be one of the flock? Okay, and you're all saying, well, we do things differently and this, that, and the other. But when you're doing, let's say, a 60-second presentation at a networking event, or you're trying to get that over to a new company and get some business, how do you actually show people what you've got that's different? Now, you, all of you, every one of you has got something unique. And do you know what it is? Well, it's you. Yes, it's you. Because, you know, there is only one Debbie Catt. Well, hooray, says most people. Well, that's not very fair, but anyway, it's probably true. But there's only one of you. But how you get over what you are and your personality is really difficult. And what my tips and techniques do is help you feel comfortable enough and competent and confident enough to be yourself. Now, I use all sorts of funny things because I have a certain character. Let me introduce you to my co-presenter, Mr. Squeaky. Now, Mr. Squeaky and I have been together quite some time. It's a relationship made in heaven, I'm sure. But anyway, but I don't think that everybody should use funny props and do squeaky things like that, because most people are not comfortable, certainly not early on doing that. So I'm not suggesting you become clones of me and do really crazy things, because the key is to be yourself, be authentic. And if you want to know what not being authentic is and being uncomfortable, please go to YouTube and look at Theresa May's 5 Awkward Moments, or better still, when she dances on to the sound of Dancing Queen to when she opened one of the party conferences. I have never seen anybody so uncomfortable, so out of their comfort zone. And what that does, of course, instead of getting people to really engage with you, what it does is it makes people uncomfortable in the audience, and it blocks the rest of the presentation. Their brain is just thinking about, if you're compassionate, you're feeling sorry for them, or if you're not, you're thinking, well, what a waste of time that was. Why did I bother? So that's the point, is being yourself. Now, what I want you to do here, and you will get one or two of these, is I want you to put your listening ears on. Here they are. These are my listening ears, but I'll take them off for now because it's spoiling the lovely head. But what we're doing now is we're going to go into some of those tips and techniques. Okay, because just being yourself, you also need to overcome some nerves. Now, I think most people, if they're genuinely honest, are a bit anxious about making a presentation, or certainly an hour-long one or a 2-hour-long, or doing something at a conference. Now, that's not surprising, because yes, next to the fear of dying, the fear of public speaking is our next biggest fear as humans. And it's even got its own name. It's called glossophobia. Yes, glossophobia. And I've had clients who are physically sick just thinking about having to do a presentation. So, and they managed to overcome that and go on and really develop their businesses and have really successful careers. So it's possible to overcome it. So at whatever situation you are, when you're thinking there, well, I'm not really nervous, or some people going, ah, somebody actually wrote to me when I did a little survey and about their feelings, and they said, I'd rather bite my own arm off. And that's a genuine comment. So, there is at least one person out there who's very unhappy. I hope they're not in the audience today and they're not suffering. But if they are, it's overcomeable. Now, so with your listening ears on, here is your first tip. And it's preparation. Yes, I'm really sorry, ladies and gentlemen, it's preparation. There is no shortcut to being a really effective presenter. You have to prepare. See, you were expecting something magical, weren't you? A little magic trick. No, I'm afraid not. So preparation, and preparation comes in two parts: content and delivery. You've got to have really relevant content. I mean, this is so common sense, but honestly, how I haven't killed people over the last 2 years online, well, because they're on screen, but the boringness and the mundaneness and the repetitiveness of people. And if I hear one more person say, hello, mine's so-and-so, and I'm at whatever, I'm going to go mad. I shall take myself off mute and I shall scream down. Sorry, calm. Anyway, because, nobody cares about who you are. Nobody cares about what you do until, guess what? Well, I'm going to tell you in a minute. So wouldn't it be marvelous then? Let's just focus on your content, and I'm going to tell you how to create really good, relevant content. Now, here we are. Wouldn't it be marvelous if we could have some antenna that I could put over, and they would tell me, feed in to a piece of software or something, what everybody was interested in and what their problems were. But no, unfortunately not. That's when it comes down to you. Hard graft here. You've got to really work and think about what is in their minds. Now, the thing is, whenever you do a presentation, that is key, because the time of day is crucial. So, first thing in the morning, here you are. Well, probably for you, it's not first thing in the morning. For me, I've been up for hours. But, people are not coming in and sitting there and thinking, right, here comes Debbie Catt. I'm going to give her 100% attention. Because I can't see you, which is a shame, but well, you think I can't, haha. But, you're probably all doing your emails, and you may even be on the phone with your mute on, whatever, okay? So my job was to get your attention right away, but I've got to think about it. So think about your audience. What is going through their mind? What is it that they want to address? And it's a really interesting thing here, because I'm going to teach you 2 new words, okay? First new word, whiff him. Whiff him. What's in it for me? Now, until you give people the what's in it for them, they're not going to listen. They don't care about your name, what your profession is, how long you've been doing it. They don't care about anything. They don't really necessarily care about their, why they're actually coming there. Because sometimes you sign up for things and so on. But with him, what's in it for me? Now, what's in it for them? Now, let me tell you a little bit about how I helped an accountant. Yes, I've actually helped accountants, because sorry if there's accountants in the audience here, but you know, they're not known for their creative approach. This is a personal opinion, I do apologize, but anyway, and this is what I said, you know, this is crossing over with delivery a little bit here, but you know, come up to the screen a little bit conspiratorial, because people will think, oh, what's happening there? So, you know, you get their interest. And then they say, over lockdown, how often did your accountant get in touch with you to see if you're okay and help you with that page to get your tax holiday? You know, that one where your hair's in tufts because you were dealing with that HMRC page and you couldn't get, well, every one of our clients got their tax holiday. Now, can you see, I haven't said anything about my name or what I do or anything. I've just talked about a real issue, and I'll tell you how I know the real issue in a minute, but it's a real issue that grabs people. Now, while we're doing this, I'm going to tell you another little thing, that there are only two sorts of audiences out there. The first sort are those who already have somebody who does what you do for them. Okay, so let's say we'll keep with this lovely accountant idea. So they already have an accountant. So the minute you say, hello, I'm Debbie and I'm an accountant, ear flaps closed, not interested, gone, nothing in there for me. Okay, second group, they're those who, for whatever reason, don't want an accountant. They probably have had one and it didn't work out, or they think it's too expensive, or they think they can do it themselves, or they just, you know, can't be asked, basically. One of those things. So what you've got to do with your presentation is, for those who've already got one, you've got to give them a reason to leave them and come to you. The other group, you've got to give them a reason to overcome their objections and come to you. Now, can you see with the example I've given there about the actual problem, how, and I never said anything about who I was or what I did. Now let's go back, the first group of people, the ones who already have an accountant. What are they thinking? My accountant didn't get in touch with me. Well, it certainly didn't help me with that tax holiday, and I could have done with that. Maybe I ought to give Debbie a ring. So you've done that one. What about the other group? The group who are, you know, prejudiced against accountants, don't need one, don't want one. Well, nobody helped me over lockdown. I really struggled. And that tax holiday, I could have really done with that money. And I hated that page. So I've really hit a nerve. I've really hit a nerve with that page and that problem. And those people will say, maybe I ought to ring Debbie. So can you see? And then, of course, you say who you are and you say a little bit about you, maybe, if you've still got time in that 60 seconds. But that's why, because a lot of people have problems getting everything into that 60 seconds. Because you know what they do? It's a bit like, have you ever done those exams, you know, where you didn't really know the answer to the question? So what you did, you wrote everything you knew about the subject and hoped the examiner would be able to find the answer. I hope you're nodding, because I certainly used to do that, because, you know, sometimes I didn't really know what the answer was, but I was hoping, and that's what most people do with their presentations. They give all the information, absolutely everything, as much as they can and as quickly as they can in 60 seconds or whatever it is, and hope that potential clients out there can work it out enough to be able to think how it's going to be relevant to them and why they should use it. Isn't that bonkers? Isn't that really bonkers? It's your job to work out what's going to be of use to your potential clients out there. It's your job to get the message right. So the what's in it for them, or what's in it for me, is the first really important thing when you're creating your text, your content. So the second word, I said I was going to teach you 2 words. Whid. Whid. What happens if I don't? What happens if I don't? Now, we all know we should do a bit more exercise. We all know we should eat healthily. Well, we 5 proportions. Well, it's more than that now, but whatever. We all know we should do this. We all know something else, but we don't do it. And especially, here's the thing about writing a will. We all know we should write a will, don't we? And because one only sure thing in life, guaranteed, is that we're going to die. We don't know when. Fortunately, hopefully, I'm going to slow down when I'm 105. So that's not a problem for me, but I have done a will. But why don't we? Until we get a fright, until there's a problem, somebody we know dies, or they find out that the will's lost, or somebody's died and the will doesn't give it to the people, or it's all gone to the government. Heaven help us. No, keep out of politics. Sorry. But why don't people write wills until they get a fright? And then, because the pain of it comes home to them. So WID is a very, very important thing. And I'm not suggesting that you put the fear of death up people and frighten them, but it's much better. For instance, IT security people. I mean, how many people actually have a proper IT security system, especially one-man bands and things like this. Now, if you are an IT security specialist, and talking about how important it is to be, we all know how important it is, but nobody takes action until something happens and they have a fright. So what you've got to do is explain to them with feelings and emotions, because that is the other brilliant thing about content. It's your vocabulary. What you need to do, and here is the word, I love this word, immerse people, immerse them in the feelings and emotions, immerse them, because it works. Because if you've got feelings and emotions and you're immersed in it, you can't turn away. And let me tell you what I mean. The NSPCC, National Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children, a wonderful charity, should be absolutely overwhelmed with money all the time. I mean, it's bonkers. We need a society to tell us something like that, that it's cruel to do that. But anyway, whatever. But they're not inundated until Christmas. What do they do at Christmas? At Christmas, they do a TV campaign, a TV ad campaign. And with that ad campaign, right at the beginning, the first thing you see is a little child cowering away, like this, right? Okay, so immediately you're immersed in the emotion of fear and dread and pity and all these things. And before you know it, boom, 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 out come the mobiles and people are donating. They can't help it because they're immersed. The RSPCA do the same thing, Royal Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. At Christmas, they do one. Little dog there, or, the water coming down, and you can't help yourself because it's tapped straight into your feelings and emotions. And that's what you have to do. I'm not suggesting you frighten people and do horrible things, but what are the feelings and emotions? And how do you find those? Well, again, another little tip. Hopefully you've got at least one, possibly more, clients who already love you, who think you're wonderful, who've really benefited. Now, this is what you do. You go back to them and you say, can you spare me 5 minutes for a couple of questions? Not write me a testimonial or all that nonsense. No. This is what you do. You ask them these questions. What were your feelings and emotions about, now, whatever it was, cybersecurity or, that page or the accountancy or whatever it is, before you worked with me? Write down or record exactly what they say. And then ask them, what were your feelings and emotions about whatever it was once we worked together? And write down or record exactly what they say. And those, ladies and gentlemen, are your gold dust pieces of information, because those words are the words that will create the feelings and emotions in your potential audience. And once you've immersed people in it, now how you do it, we'll talk about delivery in a minute, but there you are, that's your content. Because it's really, really important that you've got those feelings and emotions about people. Now, you also use the language, I call it active, passionate vocabulary, okay, as opposed to reported or passive vocabulary. Now, again, you've probably, I've got this, I've got a testimonial here that a client wrote, and people read it out. Well, apart from disengaging, which is a really bad thing, I'll talk about that in a minute, delivery, but reading it out, it's reported speech. No, take some of the words, and this is how you do it. So I said, we cross over from delivery. We say, awesome, I can't believe I could feel this good after that. That's what my clients say about me. Can you see the difference? Because, you know, I would say, oh, my clients say I'm awesome. And yeah, so it's the same material, but it's the delivery, it's the vocabulary. So active, passionate words. And that's what I learned when I was dealing with all those crisis situations. And I know that it really works, and it creates feelings and emotions. And that, ladies and gentlemen, if I get nothing over today, is the key thing to getting your creative content just right. Now, you know, what happens if I don't, what's in it for me, all that, and that's absolutely fine. So, you know, we've already crossed over a little bit into delivery. So let's just move into that. Now, you never get a second chance to make a good first impression. Okay, now, you've probably all heard that. What does it mean? Now, remember, I should have mentioned that everything I'm saying to you today applies both to on-screen and face-to-face presentations. Okay, but the delivery is slightly different. There's some slightly different things, particularly on screen. But the three things, okay, sound and vision, and physical environment. And physical environment is what we're going to talk about first of all. That is crucial because people make up their minds within the first 5 seconds, especially on screen. You know, you go onto a networking meeting and they all come on and, you know, you're looking around, and especially with 60 seconds, you make up your mind, whether you know it or not, whether or not that person is worth listening to within 5 seconds. And the reason you make up your mind and how you make up your mind is initially physical environment. Now, what do I mean by physical environment? If you look behind me, there's a door, but it's sort of closed. There's a sort of bit there, because obviously, unless I rebuild this room, there's nothing else I can do. But there's nothing else to distract you, nothing else at all. Now, it's really sad because an awful lot of people spend a lot of money to get really posh backdrops, and they get, you know, creative things. And I'm really sorry about people who are graphic designers and they create backdrops and so on. But the point is, we have a peculiar phenomenon. If the eyes are doing things, the ears don't work. It's a bit like, you know, that thing where you rub your tummy and you pat your head at the same time. Well, I don't do that very often, but just for this. It's really difficult, because if the eyes are looking at something, especially sometimes, you know, there's a plant sticking up, or there's something on a shelf, or worst thing is a notice board with bits on, and I'm looking to see, I'm trying to read what's on that notice board. And all of a sudden you start speaking. And the problem is, though, while eyes are doing that, brain is focused on that. So ears start saying, oh, just a minute, they started speaking. Brain says, sorry, ears, I can't do any attention to you. I'm still with eyes. So you want as plain a background as possible, and don't have it blurred either, because your brain is trying to focus it all the time. That's what it does. So all the time there's a blurred background, your brain is trying to focus. Really difficult. So the plainer, the simpler the background, the better, because then people, and in this instance, poor souls, you've got nothing else to look at but me. You cannot ignore me because I'm right in there. Okay. And the next thing is, what are you wearing? Now, I've made a special effort here. Look, I've got a little jacket on and matching things, not too much, but it looks like I made an effort. Do you know, when I go to meetings on screen or even face to face, not so bad face to face, and people look as if they've literally just got out of bed and they've still got either their pajamas on or the hoodie that they had on yesterday. Now, it's disrespectful, apart from anything else. And these are business meetings, whether it's a networking or it's a proper business pitch or whatever. You know, you would dress up a little bit. I always say to people, would you go to a business meeting for £500,000 worth of business in your pajamas? Well, I guess it depends on the pajamas, doesn't it? But, you know, rationally, it's not. So, you know, that's the same on screen. And don't forget, people can see exactly what you're doing. So if you are doing your emails and things and you've got your head down like that, it's really rude. You need to pay attention. So the next thing is, can people actually see you? Now, if I turn my lights off, can you see? Look, there can you see? One side of my face has gone dark. I still got 4 huge spotlights on up there. But immediately you're losing a little bit of the light on my face, and it loses interest. Not that I've got a particularly interesting face, but it is working quite hard today. So there we are. See how different it makes. Well, get a little light, put it behind your screen. You know, it's a little ring light. Look, like this, a little ring light. I've got it clipped on to a frame behind here. but you can get a little freestanding light, probably about £12 from Amazon, put it behind your screen, light your face. Do you know why? Most importantly, eye contact. Eye contact. Now, if you go into a room and you shake hands, hello, you don't look away, you don't look up there, you don't look down there. You look at the person, because if people look away, it's rude, or you think they're a bit shifty, or they've got something to hide, or something's wrong. Or it's like when you go into those networking meetings and you shake hands and somebody's talking to you, and then their eyes go to the corner of the room, the door, to see if there's someone more interesting coming in. Or is that just me, Billy No Mates? I don't know. But anyway, but it's rude. You pay attention to the person you're speaking to. Now, you're all looking down at the screen like that, aren't you? So can you see the difference between that and me looking up like this? Because here's the thing. Can you all see where your lens is on your screen? Can you point to it? Yeah, there it is on the top of my little screen. That is the nose of the person that you're speaking to. And here's my other little tip, because what you need is eyeballs, 2 little eyeballs. You cut them out and you stick them either side of that lens, that nose, and that is the face you should be talking to. So can you see the difference when I'm talking to you there, or I'm talking down there? Okay. And you don't need to look at the screen. People find it very difficult. And I say, well, yes, but you know, it's a skill. I've got a website, it's called On Screen Skills, because it's a skill to learn. It's the same when you're face to face. Okay, when you're face to face, people come in and they've got their papers and they look down like that. They never look up, they never engage with the audience. Well, why should the audience listen to you if you can't even be bothered to engage? It's probably because you're nervous, it's probably because you haven't practiced enough and rehearsed, but you know, whatever. You need to engage, you need to look at your audience, and this is the technique face to face. You need to look at people for a couple of seconds and then move on. Don't scan like the Wimbledon, you know, scan like that, but one person over there, one person over there, one person up there, and look at them, because you know what it's like when you've looked up in a meeting and somebody's looking at you, a speaker, and you haven't been paying attention, you feel quite comfortable. So that makes people pay attention all through your session. And you need to keep your eye contact. Okay, so it's really important. Now, how are we doing? Oh, brilliant timing, marvelous. Now, I'm just going to do a little bit more about delivery, because it's really quite important. We've done physical, and remember something also, I mentioned light clothes. I didn't say that. Nice bright colors, not too bright, frightening people, but something bright. Because if you look around here, you probably notice most people are sitting in darkness and they're dark. Nobody wants to listen to somebody in darkness who's got dark clothes on. It's really, really important. So the next thing is your introduction. Now, you know, the first 5 seconds, remember, now you don't have to necessarily bring a prop on. Here's one, he's lovely. Now, I like to say to people, now, I like people to think of me, my clients think of me like this, not like that, because that's me on a bad day. But, you know, you don't have to have props like that. You can come in with a really quirky sort of phrase. Here's another one. Attitudes are contagious. Is yours worth catching? Now, you know, whatever people have been thinking about before, that's something sort of unusual. So it catches their attention. But you don't have to even do that. You can say anything. Or a friend of mine who is, funnily enough, a bereavement counsellor. Well, it wouldn't be very good in the middle of a bereavement session for him to bring well, actually, he's got a very good sense of humour, but it's not really appropriate, because any prop has to be appropriate and authentic. And let me just remind you that it is authentic for me, because all that pressure, all those very difficult situations that I've been in, my antidote to that was humour. But I am a chicken impersonator, and I can sing as a chicken. In fact, I was on Capital Radio singing the Banana Boat song as a chicken 26 years ago. Fortunately, there's no archive, so you can't get it, but there you are. Anyway, but it's got to be authentic. So my friend, who's the bereavement counsellor, had a beautiful poem about serenity and calmness and so on. And he got that typed up, beautifully illustrated, and he held that up. So that got people's attention because it was something different being held up. So when I talk about props, I'm not talking about squeaky things and stuff that's ridiculous necessarily, but that's me. I like it. It keeps me cheerful. And everybody knows. And I'm going to challenge you then to find your inner squeaky chicken, because you might not have a chicken, you might not have a panda, but there's something there that makes you different that you can do in those first 5 seconds. And that's really crucial. And then you can carry on and do whatever you've got to do. Now, just moving on a little bit to delivery. And I want to just tell you the 5 most dreaded words in my whole vocabulary. Can I share my screen? When I hear, can I share my screen? I just want to run for the hills, because the majority of people, no matter how competent, do not manage to share their screen very well. There's a number of things that can happen. Technically, it can go wrong, and we know Zoom has its funny moments. So unless you are 110% sure you're going to be able to get on there and share your screen instantly, well, don't do it, please. You know, death by PowerPoint. Well, we've got death by sharing the screen, because the minute you share the screen, where does your picture go? When you're supposed to be engaged with the person, pops up there or down there in a little tiny box. You've lost engagement. And for whatever length of time the slide is up, you are disengaged from your audience. It's like PowerPoint. You know what people do? They turn away, they put the slide up, and they talk to that. That's dreadful to see the back of the head, and then they leave it up there and people are reading it. They're not listening to you. It's not possible. So if you're going to use slides, first thing is put them up. Once it's up, whatever it's doing, take it down again and re-engage so that you're full screen again each time. Yes, it's hard work, but what's the point of doing it if it's not going to work? It's actually, in fact, more people that I know use sharing the screen. It just, I don't know, not another disaster. Because here's another thing, you know, too much information. How many times have we been to these slide presentations where people use it as their script and they just read it off? Look, send me the thing and don't bother to turn up, because you're not adding any value. Unless the slide just changes the mood, has a couple of words, woof, like that, then don't use it as a slide, as a script, because most people hide behind it as a comfort blanket, because they're not really comfortable. They don't like the other thing, and it's a nice comfy way of not having to be full screen. So please, I beg you, for my own sanity and safety, please think about sharing your screen. And if you do, do it really, really professionally. Okay, so let's just recap, because we've got content, we've talked about getting into people's heads, we're doing delivery, we're getting through a few tips and techniques here. And quite honestly, I am talking quite quickly, but I am also stopping. Can you see how I pause? And sometimes I repeat things. Now, a comedian, can you imagine a comedian if he came on and went boom, 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 joke after joke after joke, didn't stop for the laughs? Doesn't matter, they're a bit nervous and, you know, off they go, poof. Well, it's pointless. Well, that's what you're doing. You're coming on, even if you've got great content, even if your delivery is good, but if you're not waiting for people to digest what you're saying, it's not going to work. So people need time. The brain can only process so much. And when you're speaking, change the pace, do something strange, you know, faster, slower, quieter, because there's nothing worse than somebody coming on and talking with the same monotone voice. And sometimes you can't really hear them. And I'm noticing that, you know, it's a classic thing on Zoom, particularly on screen, or Teams is the same. The mouth isn't necessarily in sync with the words. So it's really, and people there. So you have to talk slower. You have to emphasize things. Remember, it's a performance. This is not a conversation. It's a performance. And that's why you have to rehearse. That's why you have to practice. You have to practice, practice, practice. And you have to customize. Yes, you know, you have to review each time. You can't use the same presentation time and time again. I mean, honestly, there are people that I can give their presentations word for word, because over the last 2 years, we've been meeting up on the networking circuit. And I know that's not what you want, because people have forgotten the objective of why they're there. And that brings us to a very good point, because actually, before you even begin your planning, this is what you start with the end in mind. At the end of my presentation, I want my audience to what? What do you want them to do? Well, know you better, you know, think you're funny, all sorts of things. But no, it's you want to stand out. Remember, we've got you know, our sheep, bear, we want to stand out from the crowd. We want to be different. We want them to remember Debbie Cat, Chicken Woman, yeah, whatever. Now, 60 seconds when you've got that isn't very long, but I've already shown you, you can do that really easily, as long as you don't try and pack in however many years you've been doing that and that your knowledge and experience into that 60 seconds, because it's not going to work. Okay, so I just want to do another quick thing with you, because I talked about overcoming nerves. And no matter how comfortable and competent you are, your heart will beat a little bit faster and adrenaline goes around. So breathing exercises, ladies and gentlemen, breathing exercises. I don't know if anybody knows any actors or anything, but actors do this, but they do it a little bit more intensely. And that's breathing to the count of 5. Okay, now breathing to the count of 5 is a little exercise which takes in a lot more air. It gets the blood to take away the adrenaline. So that's the thing that makes your heart boom, 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 and makes you get panicky. And it slows everything down. So, and it also, some people forget to breathe altogether because they're so panicky, then and then you get a great like that. So breathing exercise. So what you do, and there we are, from the diaphragm down here, you're taking a breath through your nose to the count of 5. You hold it for a count of 5. And then you breathe out for a count of 5 and you push it out through your mouth. Now, you have to be on mute to do this. Don't do it if you're coming up for your 60 seconds in a networking and all they hear is, they think, oh, Debbie Cat. No, that sounds funny, but you've been doing an exercise with Debbie Cat. Anyway, but do that 3 or 4 times before any stressful situation, even actually before you know, if you wake up in the night and you can't get to sleep again, very relaxing. But don't do it while you're driving or using machinery, please. That's one of my, I have to say that, safety factor. But in for the count of 5, hold it for a count of 5 and out for a count of 5. Do that a few times and that really will help your nerves. It will really calm you down, slow your pulse, really good. So that's another thing to overcome nerves. So let's just summarize, because we're just coming up to the time when the Q&A, and I'm hoping that there will be some questions. But we've talked about making sure that your content is absolutely spot on for those clients. And that means every time you're doing a presentation, you have to think through again. You have to practice and you have to rehearse, because preparation is the key to being really an effective and persuasive and memorable person. Delivery. Your environment. Remember how important that is to just be center stage or center screen. What you wear, how you behave, and that first 5 seconds, what you do. You know, you could, this is a wonderful thing. You know, you can do that, but I don't suggest you do. It's not a pleasant thing sometimes, and it frightens my next door neighbor. They've just got a new baby, so I don't do that. You can imagine me practicing on. But generally, I must finish up and say, elephants never forget, but people will. And it's really important for you to be remembered for all the right reasons. Thank you. Now we have a Q&A.
Wonderful. Thank you, Debbie. Really, really interesting. I realised I was wearing a dark green jumper, not light colours, but I think for me, it's I think the breathing exercises is really, really key, because you can't really replicate that nerves, can you? So actually, if you really do some breathing exercises, I can really see how that would help. So we've had quite a lot of questions in the Q&A. The first set I've kind of grouped together, and they're around eye contact. So one is around how to maintain eye contact for a long time without notes, and you yourself today, you know, you've spoken for 40 minutes, it appears, without notes. So how do you do it for an extended period of time? And also one around neurodiversity. So an anonymous attendee today is neurodiverse and says that they struggle with eye contact. And have you got any advice for that?
Well, thank you for the questions. Yeah, these are really good points. Let's deal with them one at a time. The first thing is maintaining eye contact. Well, you can't stare at it all the time. Now, the thing is, obviously, I'm an experienced person. If you're not experienced, I suggest you have notes. And if you've got notes, particularly, but you need bullet point notes, don't write out the script and don't try and read it or whatever. But you see, something about this size on a card, not a piece of paper, because again, if you're nervous and you're standing in front of people and you're holding the paper will shake like this. And it emphasizes and draws attention to the fact you're nervous. So you have little cards, number them in case they get out of order, and put bullet point items on there so that it reminds you they're the key words for that next section. And but that really emphasizes the need to rehearse, practice, practice, practice. Even with the best preparation, something goes wrong. I mean, I had a pigeon fly through a conference room once when I was doing, and you know, it was a little bit funny, and I was able to say, oh goodness, we've got cat amongst the pigeons already or something, but you know, it threw me off. But there I am with my cards, and you know, it goes back. So even autopilot can fail. So have your prompt notes, and just make sure that they are the keywords and keep them there. And people don't mind notes, especially if there's a lectern, you know, and you can just have them on a lectern. And this depends obviously if you're face to face or you can have notes all round. I've got so many props, I haven't got room for notes here. I'm overcrowded with props, as you can imagine, but I hope that answers the question. Now, the other thing also, it's not just eye problems, it's also people with hearing problems as well. And that's when it's important to perhaps find out about your audience if you're doing a longer presentation, and have the captions as well. But that's another thing about also being well lit, so people can lip read, because if you are in darkness, I have a friend who is severely hearing impaired, and you know, when people aren't lit properly, she has enormous problems. With the lighting issue, I do appreciate that. I'm not familiar with too much detail of that. So what would be lovely is if I could have the details of that person. We can perhaps follow up with that with a more detailed answer after the webinar, actually, Emma and Jackie.
So yeah, so if it was an anonymous person asked around the neurodiversity, so perhaps if they went onto your LinkedIn and
that would be lovely if they could contact me
there. Yeah, yes, I know.
Indeed.
My husband and son are both autistic, and it's not a verified tip, but they look at the top of somebody's ear, and they always say, well, then I know that it looks like I've got eye contact, but
well,
make eye contact.
That's absolutely right. I think that the point is it depends on the actual difficulty, and also sometimes if it depends on, again, your audience, you can mention something to people, and it's all engagement is the key to everything. You probably notice, I mean, I'm not word perfect, and I sometimes forget, and I say to people, well, where was I? Because I've gone off, you know, cat amongst the pigeons if something flies through or something. But the audience, if you're engaged with them, they're with you. They'll tell you, or they'll help you, or they'll, you know, they want you to succeed. So if there is an issue of some sort, sometimes you can share that if it's on a one-to-one basis. But certainly, if that person would like to contact me, I'd be delighted to help.
We've got another one around, a few around backgrounds and your view on having, I mean, I've got today my FSB logo, but around having contact details, strapline, etc. on the background, your views on that, or if there's any particular colours you think would work well on the virtual meetings for backgrounds?
Well, brilliant questions. Again, bringing up a point that I've already made. Personally, what is the point of that? Do you want people to write down your details from there? Are you expecting them to remember it? You know, when I go to networking meetings, I always get a list of people who've attended. That's what the network group does. They send them. So you don't need that. And, you know, if somebody's name, you can quickly jot it down at the end, but, you know, I can't see what added value having that there. Even with yours there, my brain is looking at the pattern on them. It is distracting, and I have to stick to my original opinion. I really do think the plainer the background, the more focused you are on that person speaking.
Yeah, and any particular colours on background, or
Well,
I know you said lighter the better.
Well, not really, because again, the brighter they are, the more distracting they are. It's what is the purpose? What is the purpose of them? If people, how important is it that people know what your logo is? If you're doing a brand presentation and you're demonstrating the effectiveness of the brand, that's one thing. If we're talking about just presenting and you're trying to get a message over and getting people to like and want to work with you, that's totally different. Why would you need them to know what your brand is? I can't, really, in all the years I've been doing this, the value is in the person, not in the logo. So the brighter it is, the more distracting it is.
Yeah. Thank you. So the next questions are around introducing yourself, not in a pitching kind of environment. So how would you present, this is from Lillian, and then one from Krishna follows on. So how would you present yourself not in a 1 minute pitch situation? So if you were just introducing yourself. And similarly, Krishna says that they're going to do a presentation on stress to success. Is it okay to introduce themselves at the beginning, or is that a no-no? And if it is a no-no, when would you put that into the sequence?
Well, I think it's always a no-no, because look what happened this morning. You did a lovely introduction for me, and you did a little piece about my background. So they already know who I am and what I do. So I'll come on and I say more or less exactly the same. I've wasted those precious gold dust 5 seconds when I could either engage or lose them. Okay, what does it add? What value does it add? That's the whole key to this. Now, my suggestion for everybody is thinking about their audience and thinking about something that will clear their mind of whatever they've been doing. Especially the later you go in the morning, if you're at a presentation and people are either thinking about coffee, or they're thinking about lunch, or they've just come back from lunch, or they're thinking of going home. You've got to get them out of that mindset situation and get them focused on you. Otherwise, they're not going to grasp the next 10 minutes, half an hour, whatever it is, or even 60 seconds. So again, coming on and introducing yourself, normally people just don't amble onto a stage without being introduced. Okay, there's usually some form of introduction, and this is my little tip, and you'll know, I'll be perfectly upfront, I wrote the introduction for you, Emma, and people like that because you've got a big enough job to do anyway. Excuse me. So if you can write a little bit, 2 or 3 lines for the presenter, the master of ceremonies or whatever, they'll be very grateful. So that's it, and make sure that, because that way they get your name right as well. I've been on places where people don't even get your name right, but you need that first 5 seconds to grab and hold and show people there's something in this for them, even if it's humor, even if it's quirky, something, and then fine, introduce yourself and say, well, that's the Debbie Cat brand, and that's what I do. I'm a public speaking coach. Okay, but right at the beginning, it has to be something that's in it for them. Okay, they're not interested in your name or your job. Sorry.
No. So to Lillian's question, when just introducing yourself, so would you, how would you address that? So if you
well, again, I would say, hello, I'm Debbie Cat. Always repeat your Christian name twice, or your first name twice, because that goes in, first time doesn't. And then don't just say, I'm a public speaking coach. So I never say that. I say, I help people get their message across with power and personality.
Yeah.
And it's something, again, it's something for them. It's not all about me, I do this. It's something that is intriguing for them, that could relate to what they do.
Okay. We've got a couple of questions around, so one around somebody who struggles with fidgeting. So, have you got any tips for somebody who struggles with fidgeting when they give a presentation? And then Paul has said, so when the host explicitly says, tell you who you are and where you're from, just ignore it. I guess your answer to that is yes. So yeah, so perhaps any tips on fidgeting?
Well, fidgeting is it's just nerves. It's usually lack of preparation, because the brain's going, oh, what if I froze? What if I don't remember? What if I don't do this? And so the body's got to try, and it's a nervous energy, which is there. So actually preparation, and I cannot stress this enough, and I know it's boring, and I know people don't want to do it, and that's why it doesn't work, but it has to be done. The preparation has to be done. And then when your brain goes, oh, the other part of the brain, the one that's really sensible and is prepared, says, no, we got this. We know that. We've got our cards. We've got our prompts. We've practiced. We know this. So all that really helps. But as I said before about the cards, if this is face to face, you can have your cards, and it's actually quite difficult to fidget with holding cards in your hand.
Right, that's a great
okay.
point.
So that's one thing. If you're on screen, I suggest you clasp your hands and put them in your lap. Yeah. And hold them there. Okay, and that will help enormously. It is a habit, and it can be broken.
Mm-hmm. Well, we've got a couple of questions around specific sectors. So an anonymous attendee says, we're a creative business, so we tend to wear what we're comfortable with as an industry. Would you recommend we wear nicer clothing for networking? And then also we had a question from Lawrence, who said, how would you sell AI? Large companies have taken it up with enthusiasm, but small companies are much less likely to do so. So I guess any thoughts on those two questions?
Well, yes, you can imagine I have got thoughts on that. Yeah. Well, we've only got another 5 minutes. So the first thing is about, I mean, people say, what do you say? I'm not saying you've got to wear a suit and tie and all stuff, and you've got to be comfortable. That's absolutely crucial, especially face to face. If you're on stage and you're wearing something new, the shoes pinch or squeak, the clothes are a bit, uncomfortable, and no, wear something. I have got my speaking clothes. I've got speaking shoes and speaking clothes, and they're things that I'm comfortable in. I know how they work. I know how my balance is, because I tend to wear about 4-inch stilettos when I'm presenting, dominate the stage. But don't do that if you're not used to 4-inch heels, because, your balance is different. So wear clothes you're comfortable in. But, again, it's about the first impression. What impression are you trying to create? And I know you creative people, and you say, well, this is us, and this is, yeah, it is. But it's not all about you. It's about your audience. What are they thinking? Are they thinking, cool, well, they're a bit of a ramshackle bunch. Couldn't even be bothered to put on a clean shirt to come and see us. If that's how you would turn up at a proper business pitch for £500,000 worth of business, fine. Okay, then you're going to have to go some with that first 5 seconds to get people over that, oh, don't like the look of him, or I can't even see him. What's he got on there? Because whether we like it or not, our brains are making judgments.
Yeah, we've got quite a lot. So I'm going to try and group some of these together. So Simon asks, so this is around about these two, about if something goes wrong, I guess, in the presentation. So Simon says, how would you deal with objections? And then we had a question around if you lose your train of thought, and I can't now find who asked that question, but if you lose your train of thought, have you got any tactic? Oh, it was Dawn, how to get back on track. So
I have. Well, okay. So dealing with the audience, to me, actually, when you say objections, if this is in the Q&A and people say, I don't agree with that, there's lots of ways of dealing with what I would call difficult people or complaints or whatever. The first is keep your cool. 2 wrongs don't make a right. If somebody says something rude to you, always stay professional and calm. Keep your voice nice and calm, and it really does pay off. Especially if somebody's being disruptive in an audience, then the audience will get irritated with them, and they'll lose interest. But sometimes you can say, well, I'm really sorry you feel like that. And what I would suggest is if we could just take this offline, and after the meeting, I'm more than happy to talk this through. Now, can we just go back? And it's all about controlling the situation. And objections, again, it's a bit like, when I've had to deal with really difficult press conferences. What you do with press conferences, you don't just think about the questions that you want them to ask. You brainstorm all the possible questions and draft the answers, okay, so that you're not taken unawares. because in most presentations, it's usually quite easy to think through what might come out of the audience, especially if you know the sort of audience you've got. Okay, and that's again preparation about planning the type of questions and the answers. But you know, if you don't know the answer to a question, which is another thing, never try and fob it off, never lie, never make it up. Just say, do you know, that's a really good question. I don't know the answer to that, but I will find out. And if you come up and leave your notes, your details with me after the session, I will get back to you by tomorrow or whatever. And nobody expects people to know everything. It's how you handle it that's important. Okay. Now, the other thing about losing your place, well, if you've got your cards and if you've got your prompt notes, and certainly if you're on screen, you can still have them there. Okay, you can quickly, you know, whiz through this. I call them diversionary tactics. I've never had to pretend I'm having a heart attack, but I quite honestly, I find that if you're honest and you've engaged, audiences, they don't expect you to be word perfect. In fact, that puts people off. If you're too polished, if you've got it really, you know, then it's not real, because people aren't like that. People do lose their track. So they say, now, where was I? Hang on, have I said, oh yes, I know. And they'll be with you. Yeah. So it's all about style. It's being yourself, and back to being comfortable and confident enough to be yourself.
So we've got literally 2 minutes left. So I'm going to ask this question because it links. So we've had so many questions, Debbie, loads of questions. So what I'm going to suggest to people will answer hopefully Krishna's question, which is how do we follow up at the end of a presentation? So I'm going to suggest that if people have got specific questions, that are they okay to I know you said they were, but find you on LinkedIn, you're more than happy to answer.
Absolutely. No, it's a shame because they're
exactly.
They're interested enough to ask the question, and we just haven't got the right time. So
yeah, that's fine. Wonderful. And but Sharmini asks, what do you feel how do you overcome feeling that you are boasting about yourself?
Well, again, it's all about preparation, and it's about the audience. It's not about you. If you're boasting, you've got it wrong. You are, when you're talking to the audience, you're talking about problems that they are encountering and how you can help them, and how in fact you've helped people with exactly the sort of problems that they've got. So you're not boasting. If you are boasting, that's not right. Yeah. That you've sort of, you know, miscalculated your approach here. But I would say that I'm on LinkedIn, Debbie Catt. My main website is onscreenskills.co.uk, and I think you're going to put this up on the system, aren't you? Yeah. And I'd be more than happy to talk to people, because I'm on a mission. I did challenge people to find their inner squeaky chicken. It's not to be silly. It's not to have a prop, but everybody has something unique. Everybody has a character and a personality, and that's what separates them from everybody else.
Great. Well, thank you. So the last question I can answer, which was from Peter, because he said his apologies, he's arrived late, but is it recorded? And absolutely it is. It'll be on FSB Hub for our recorded webinars. So it's just a massive thank you to you, Debbie, for that. Really the chat proves everything, because it's just been buzzing. So absolutely fascinating. And if people have enjoyed it, please leave us a Trustpilot review. We really do appreciate it, and it encourages other people to come along to these sessions. So
absolutely, and just get in touch, because you know, I'm on a mission. Really, life is tough. It's really tough out there, and you know, people are spending money on presentation, you know, networking and all this. But if they're not making the most of their opportunities, it's wasted, and it's such a shame.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Debbie. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much. Bye bye, everybody.
Bye.